You ever tried to go to open a lock only to find that the key won't turn? Such a frustrating experience. I mean, even a relatively simple lock can accommodate thousands of possible key patterns. And the more complex the lock, the more that number increases. And yet, however many options there are, only one pattern moves all those pins inside to the place where the lock opens. And so having the right key makes all the difference. Now, I think, in a way, you could look at the Old Testament law like a complex locking mechanism. The whole system guards the way to the presence of God. Right? When they set up the tabernacle, he was at the center of it. He was there in the Holy of Holies, his glory, his presence. And so there were all these things around, in a way, locking people out. There are certainly promises to believe, commands to obey in the law, the rituals to follow, and all the sacrifices. But I think the overall message of that is, in our fallen state as sinful human beings, no one can unlock that. No one gets to enter in. I mean, even the most righteous Old Testament believers were kept at a distance from God's presence. And even for us today, as we go back and read the law, it's so complicated sometimes that you just get lost in all the details. Maybe you've had that experience. You try to read through the Bible, and then you hit Leviticus, right? It slows down towards the end of Exodus, and you hit Leviticus, and you're just stumped. What do I do with this? Well, in his Sermon on the Mount, I think Jesus reinforces that sense of separation and distance that's part of the law. But he also reveals himself to be the key. He's the one that unlocks it all. I think that comes out in his words here in Matthew 5:17 through 20. It tells us that he said, "Do not think that I've come to abolish the law or the prophets. I've not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not an iota, not a dot will pass away from the law until all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever relaxes one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you'll never enter the kingdom of heaven." Now, in future messages, we'll see how Jesus unpacks that last statement in the rest of the chapter. That's really what it's all about. And the problem that he's addressing here is that the Pharisees obsessively followed all the traditional applications of the law. But what Jesus argues is that they were missing the heart of it. And so even though to outside observers, they seem to be rigorous in their pursuit of obedience, they were actually, as Jesus says here, relaxing the law, lessening it and its demands, because they would just focus on the externals, on external conformity. And so Jesus says that approach to righteousness will never open the way into God's kingdom. Now, on the other hand, then, Jesus himself is, I think, the great one that he talks about here, who keeps the commandments and teaches them. In fact, going back to verse 17, he says he fulfills them so that every detail will be accomplished just as it was promised. And that's what opens the way for us to enter the kingdom, to spend eternity in the presence of God. But how does all that work? What does Jesus do? I would put it this way. I think we can rejoice that he fulfills God's law for us in 4 major ways. Now, he doesn't explain them all here in the Sermon on the Mount. But Matthew's Gospel and other New Testament passages help us understand them. And they're central ideas to the gospel. They give us comfort and hope. But it seems to me that a lot of Christians maybe grasp only 1 or 2 of these. And I think having that sort of gap in our thinking can end up distorting, twisting our motivations for pursuing righteousness and sapping the joy that God wants us to have in following him.